Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another Billikens Central Postgame presented by our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours, and our good friends at My Home Bank will tell you more about those sponsors. But we have a wild last few minutes of this game to talk about. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That is Eric Sontag, and we're breaking down the Billikens surviving in Pittsburgh. They move on to 18-1, but it was an ugly one, especially late, Eric Sontag.
My God, that got really sweaty. A lot of Stanford vibes, Stanford flashbacks, but they do get it done. Brady Dunlap on the floor. Not many other players were hitting free throws, but he hits two big free throws there to get the team from a 1 point lead to a 3 point lead. And then he makes a really good defensive play to contest the three by Jimmy Williams that would have tied the game. Brady does a really good job of contesting shots. He misses. Deion Brown luckily gets 1 out of 2 to make it a 4 point game to essentially clinch it. So just overall, obviously a lot of things you want to clean up. I think they got tight, feeling pressure, now a ranked team, but overall, like just win, baby. They hang on. Just second time in school history, 18-1. They got a 12-game winning streak. And just the main thing is, I think this team's put themselves in a position that you just got to take care of business, especially when you're on the road. I think that's good enough. Clean it up. Don't ever do it again to make it that sweaty. And then we got to go to the Bonnies and do it again on Friday. So big sigh of relief in Billiken Nation tonight for sure.
Yeah, it was a big sigh of relief for a lot of people. Getting some responses here on Twitter that I'm trying to respond to as I host this. But also jump in the chat. Let us know what you guys are talking about. Rick Majerus' towel says, I am not okay right now, fellas. What the actual F were we doing the last 4 minutes? The answer to that is turning the ball over and playing absolutely terrible basketball. That's what the Billikens were doing in the last 5 minutes. In fact, in the last 5 minutes, they turned the ball over. Not the last 5 minutes. The last 3 minutes and 46 seconds, they turned the ball over 6 times alone. For a little perspective for the whole game, they turned the ball over 16 times this game. They turned the ball over 6 times in the entire first half. And they also did it in the last 3:46 of the game. That is absolutely inexcusable. Any other situation, any other game, and they're walking away with a loss tonight. And so they got to thank their lucky stars that just the way that they were blowing this one, Duquesne found a way to blow it even more because they could not hit a shot to save their life. It was one of the most futile attempts I've ever seen to actually try to score the ball. What Duquesne was able to do, it was ridiculous how many shots they actually took, how many shots they couldn't make, and somehow they fell apart and couldn't make and couldn't close that game out. The fact that the Billikens were turning the ball over 6 times in that run, and there was a 2-minute space where Duquesne did not score the basketball. A 3-minute space, sorry. Duquesne did not score the basketball from 3:42 to 53 seconds left in the game. And that is in the same time frame that the Billikens are just handing them the ball. So the inability from Duquesne to actually capitalize on the Billikens turnovers, which they were doing in the first half, the fewer turnovers that it was, absolutely handed the game to the Billikens. There's no way to put around it. They got lucky tonight.
They did. And the turnovers was really something they had cleaned up from earlier in the season, where they've even their KenPom stats, they had gotten below that 17% turnover rate that we've talked about, where they finally got under that. And even at halftime tonight, I kind of made a note to myself that, okay, turnovers, only 6, things are looking good. But yeah, then you said it, just again, Stanford vibes, they reared their ugly head. This team also away from home, I think, there's a lot to be desired there with a lot of their performances. They're not shooting the ball well on the road either, for the most part. That's another thing to be concerned about. And, Duquesne, what they have done really well, they shoot the ball well. They're right behind the Billikens in field goal percentage in the A10. And I think the part of it is Billiken defense, challenging shots. But to your point, I think Duquesne just had an off night from the floor too. They shoot 34% from the field and 26% from 3. If Duquesne hits a couple more shots, this game has a totally different vibe, a totally different result. We're having a much different post-game show.
I need to unmute myself. That would be helpful. And Stu Durando just tweeted this out, and I wanted to check it out. This is insane. From the 4:34 mark of the second half, the Billikens would go to the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and they would miss free throws in 4 of those trips. Kellen Thames missed the second of 2. McCautry missed 1. Then he missed a second one. Quentin Jones missed the second, missed 1 of 2. Brady Dunlap hit both of his, and then Dion misses 1 of 2 as well. So just the inconsistency can be found in every way. And listen, the second half start wasn't perfect. We can talk about the run. We will talk about the run that gave the Billikens this win, essentially. They also let up 4 offensive rebounds in the first couple possessions of the second half. And I think it was actually just 2 out of like the first 5 possessions, and all 4 of those offensive rebounds came in pairs where they gave Duquesne 3 shots at scoring the ball, and somehow they weren't able to. So, you got a bookended second half that started in some ways and ended just about the most terrible way you can imagine, plus the first half where it was sloppy and things like that. Listen, the Billikens are 1-7 in their last 8 trips to Pittsburgh to face off against Duquesne. We got put a little asterisk on those 7 losses because one of them, at least 1, if not 2 SLU players were cheating to lose that game. So we can put a little asterisk on that. Nonetheless, it's been a tough sledding traveling to Pittsburgh and playing these away games. This is a team that's gotten to play a lot of home games this year. They've looked rougher in a lot of ways on the road, like a lot of basketball teams are going to, and they just have to fight through it. And that's the big thing. We know they have the skill to not play like complete dog shit like we saw for the last 5 minutes. It's just that at times, especially away, they find a way to blow it and get into these really bad ruts.
Yeah, the offensive rebounds were a huge problem all night long, which is a big factor of that. SLU, they're 6th in the country in rebounding margin, plus 12.3 per game, and they get out rebounded tonight by Duquesne 42-38, and it was 17-9 on the offensive glass. 17 offensive rebounds for the Dukes, but they only converted it into 18 second chance points. Second chance points, that category was 18-13 in favor of Duquesne. That could have been a lot worse in the second half.
But look at did they really they only got 18 second chance points? That's wild.
Yeah.
Especially because the second half they pulled down 9 offensive rebounds, and I think they might have only scored like 10 of those second chance points in the
Rock froze up on us.
The fact
there he is.
Oh, sorry. We're having a little internet issues tonight. Our apologies there. Let's go to Michael Etter, who says, talk about wetting the bed. Not completely. They were able to make it to the bathroom in time. Although you need to learn to play through adversity to win close games. That was Josh Search's big point going into the VCU game. I think there's a line between playing, learning through adversity and playing your worst 6 minutes of basketball, maybe the entire season.
Yeah. And I talked to Mike Etter at the game on Saturday against Richmond. So a loyal listener, a loyal viewer of the show. And he has, said there's 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and the Billikens covering. That did not happen tonight. I was actually nervous about the Richmond game. Both Richmond and Duquesne have kind of been these nemesis of the Billikens over the years. And I just thought SLU was due to get tested at home, where they haven't really been tested much this season. I guess the San Francisco game got a little sweaty, but they still win that game by double digits. But this is a game, I thought this was going to be a much more comfortable matchup for SLU, just because Duquesne likes to play so fast, very up-tempo, and I thought they would really go and play into the Billikens' hands. Duquesne, they shot the ball really well in the first half, some ridiculous shots that was really keeping them in the game. But the second half, like we talked about, like they just missed a lot of shots, and their shooting percentage, I'd have to see what it was first half opposed to second half, but SLU really, really got lucky with that. And SLU shooting from 3, 9 out of 20, that saved their bacon too. 45% from the field. You hit 1 or 2 less shots. Again, that's how narrow these margins can be when you get in these tight games.
Lake Feldman says, from the point where the score was 77-70 to the end of the game was some of the worst basketball I've seen in a long time. Passive, soft, not dealing with any of the pressure at all. And you read the exact situation. 77-70 is the 342 mark of the game. We kind of were circling the 346 mark when Robbie Avila had the first of those 6 turnovers that the Billikens would have in the final 4 minutes. You read it perfectly, Lake Feldman. That's really where things started falling apart for the Billikens. 3.5, 4 minutes of some bad basketball, and I'm excited to see. Not excited. I'm interested to see what Josh Schertz has to say about that. Let's get Rick Majerus. Says Gaines, who we all love on the Twitter tweet, says he made the observation on Twitter about this being a perfect game to follow, breaking into the top 5. Get your minds right and move on to the next one. Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that one a little bit. I mean, the premise isn't wrong. They got shook at a place where they don't win a lot, and they won an ugly one. They go on the run. We haven't talked about the run yet. We'll talk about the run, but they have some goofy ass travel. I think it was Arch Barron Historian who might have covered that on Twitter today. They have some goofy ass travel from Pittsburgh to Olean, as Bob Ramsey has said. You can't get to Olean, which is where St. Bonaventure is. Can't get there. It's hard to see how that affects things going into Friday. Tuesday, Friday, a weird schedule. They're on the road. Again, how much of this is you're happy they have to play through adversity? How much of this is you're worried about them forgetting how to play basketball for 4 minutes?
Yeah, I think just overall, and yeah, I think your internet's caught back up now. We had a little tech issue, but I think you're back. You're good. I think I agree with that premise. That this is a good game for breaking in the top 25. I think, like I said at the top, I think the Billikens are at the spot, especially when they're on the road. They just need to win because at home they're going to be facing some really big spreads. In probably the 15-ish range where you got to win impressively to stay level in the metrics. But Ken Pom had this projected as SLU to win by 8, if I'm not mistaken. They win by 4. Because the spread, I believe, was 8.5. I think is right. What it closed at 8.5 or 9.5. So, end of the day, you win the game by 4. So I don't think it really hurts you in the metrics. They might drop a little bit in the net and Ken Pom, like a couple spots at most. But I think, especially on the road, it is just survive and advance. And I'd be curious to hear what Schertz has to say. I do think the team got tight. And I think when you have a number next to your name, when you see the score on the TV screen, you got a 24 next to your name. I do think at the end of the day, these are college kids, and I think it's human nature to get a little bit tight when you're on the road.
All right, let's get to Corey Land's chat here. Survive and move on to the next. Win is a win. It's never easy on the road. Definitely have some things to focus on in practice the next couple of days. Yeah, the question is, when are they going to get a full practice in because of that goofy travel schedule and the weird overall schedule against St. Bonaventure on Friday afternoon, 4:30, I think is tip-off for that game out of New York. So, yeah, definitely some weird things. Probably only going to have one day to practice. So it'll be an interesting matchup against the Bonnies. Let's move on from just reacting to the final minutes to kind of analyzing some things we saw through that game. And the first thing we got to do when we do break down a game here on the Billikens Central Postgame, let's talk about our friends over at Home Bank. We're going to get to our money molding STL Sports Central when we found a business lending partner to work with, and that is Home Bank. From business lending to everyday banking, Home Bank has been with us since day one as a trusted partner. Business isn't just about numbers, it's about relationships. And with Home Bank, those relationships make all the difference. Home Bank is the team behind our team here at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. That's Home Bank, member FDIC. More than a bank, they're your business partner. Of course, they bring us our money moment of the game. A couple that we could go with here, Eric Sontag, but I'm going to roll with the guy who I think had to be the player of the game, and that's going to be Trey Green. We're going to fast forward to the Billikens having their largest deficit in conference play late in the first half. They're down by a gargantuan 5 points. Things started to get a little bit tricky coming into the game. The Billikens had only been down by 3 in conference play. Their largest deficit, by the way, this entire season is 9 points earlier in the non-conference schedule. So they are down their largest deficit of the season in conference play, 33-28. And in back-to-back possessions, they go to Trey Green. The first time it's a little bit of a broken possession. He gets it late and fires off a deep one from about 23 feet. The second possession, a very, very strategic play call that the Billikens always go to. It's a little flare screen where Trey Green gets a screener from Amari McCautry. He comes off that screen. He comes around the dribble handoff from Robbie Avila. There's no Duquesne defender because they've gotten held up in the off-ball screen and the dribble handoff. Trey Green wide open, snaps that three. 6 quick points for the Billikens. They're up by 1. And although we obviously talked about how they did a lot of checking the rear view mirror. They never technically looked back and would go on to lead the rest of the game and finish this one out. Eventually, 81-77. I'm going with Trey Green's 2 big threes late in the first half for my home bank money moment of the game.
I actually had the exact same one.
There it is.
And yeah, and Trey Green, I found it interesting when he hit those 2 threes. He had been very quiet early on. Like, I would say of the 9 guys in the rotation, he was the one least involved in the game up to that point. He was kind of invisible. I'm loving Rock's image right now in celebration with Trey Green. I imagine we're going to get him back here soon. There he is. But really, Trey Green, he had 4 3-pointers in this game, 4-7 from 3. Every single one of them was massive. You mentioned those 2 in the first half. Then early in the second half, SLU was up by 4. It was 44-40, I noted. And Robbie directed traffic. I'm sure we'll talk about Robbie, who had a really, really good game. He directs traffic, finds Trey Green for a 3 near the top of the key. He drained it. That started a 15-2 run that put SLU up by 17. And really, they needed just about every single one of those points. And then, so that was Trey Green's 3rd 3 of the game, and his 4th 3 of the game was when Duquesne had started to make a run. They had cut it to single digits, and then he hit his 4th 3 of the game to make it double digits once again. The very next possession, he got an assist. He had 3 assists in the game, Green did, to put SLU back up 14 at that point. So really, Green, after really being very quiet in the first half, those 2 threes in a blink of an eye, and ends up with 4 steals as well. His defense was fantastic in the second half. Both Trey Green and Amari McCautry finished with 4 steals in the game. Those were really, really crucial to keep Duquesne at bay.
If anybody wants to help me get fiber to help up this Wi-Fi, please do, because I have had to close out of all my stat pages, and now I'm just running this thing off pure vibes because I didn't want any web pages eating up my internet. It's Trey Green's my player of the game if we're going to get into it. I did a little time math, my favorite kind of math, and Trey Green did not score the first 7:44 that he was on the court. He picked up an assist, had some okay defensive plays, but he didn't score in the first 7:44 that he was on the court. In the next 9:05 that he would play, he would rip off all 14 points that he scored tonight. Man. I mean, that kind of incandescent scoring. It's been Trey Green's mark this entire season. He's had some colder games. He's had some big games. Tonight was a big game from him, but he only had to do it for one half or really for a 9-minute run from the late in the first half with the 2 threes we already talked about, and then a couple more threes later on early in the second half. But to your point, it's not just the incandescent, quick, afterburner kind of scoring that we can get from Trey Green that jumped out to me this game. Your point, those 4 steals. Over the last few games, it's becoming more and more apparent ever since he returned from injury. I guess it would have been illness. Or Trey Green actually was out because of injury, I think. His defense has just been fantastic. And we talked about it with Earl Austin Jr. last time on the Billikens Central Post game about how Trey Green is one of the best taggers. Again, tagging is when you keep your shooter, your man there, but you're swiping the ball for drivers when they're coming in the paint. And Trey Green has become one of the best taggers on this team. They don't double team a lot, but the few times that Trey Green split off and said, I'm going to go attack that post player who's posting up Robbie and steal the ball, he's gotten him. He had a big steal tonight, both helping out Robbie in the first half, and then he rips one away in the passing lane for, I think, what would have been his 2nd or 3rd steal of the game, adds a 4th one as well. Trey Green's defense tonight was incredible, and it's not just the steals. 1v1, go back and watch the long stretches that 17-2 run early in the second half where this game changed the first time. Trey Green was a dog on defense. Got a couple of the steals, but I mean, he's in his guy's kitchen every single play on the perimeter. Didn't expect that from Trey Green. He's taking care of the ball. He's getting assists. All in all, just 100% player of the game, Trey Green. They don't win without him on both sides of the ball tonight.
Yep, no doubt about it. 100% agreement. I also thought Amari, was probably the least valuable player of the first half. He also finishing with 4 steals with Green, where, Amari was just like, he had nothing in the first half. He was forcing way too many things where he was, like I said, he's forcing it. But then it flipped. Second half, he started attacking in the right situations and finishing at the rim. And that really set the tone in the second half, where they just did a much better job finishing at the rim in the second half. I noted their 2-point field goal percentage. We know how important that is to this team. Josh Church's teams are always so elite from 2-point range. First half, they were 37%. 7 out of 19 in the first half from 2-point range. And a lot of that was Amari taking dumb shots, trying to get to the rim. They also had a few uncharacteristic mid-range jumpers in the first half as well. Yeah, Robbie actually hit one. And then just also even some short shots that were not layups. They were just kind of difficult. And but the second half, it was much better. It was much more of the Billiken offense that we're used to seeing up until the final 4 minutes where they started to collapse. But second half from 2-point field goals, 12 out of 18, 67% in the second half. That's much more characteristic of what you see out of the Billikens. And Amari, like that, he was a big, big part of that. Didn't score in the first half. All other the 8 other guys in the rotation scored in the first half. But Amari scores all 8 of his points in the second half. Also finishes with 7 rebounds, team high 7 rebounds, and those 4 steals. Also, the Billikens overall rebounding wise, again, getting out rebounded tonight, but I do think it's notable. There are 5 players on this team that finished with at least 5 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good to see the rebounding depth. Quentin Jones, Deion Brown, Robbie Avila, Amari, and Kellen Thames, all with at least 5 rebounds. And again, margins thin. They needed every last one of them.
Yes, they did. And speaking of Amari McCautry, he had 8 points. All 8 of those points came in the first few minutes of the second half. They all came in that Billikens 17-2 run that completely changed the game. Here was the score when Amari McCautry scored all 8 of his points. 40-38 Billikens gives him a 4-point lead. 42-38 Billikens gives him a 6-point lead. 47-40 Billikens, 9-point lead. So right there, 2-point lead or 4-point lead, 6-point lead, 9-point lead. And a little bit later on, he scores his final of those 8 points to make at 55-42, to make it 57-42, to make it a 15-point lead. Just all of that condensed right there at the beginning of the second half. Amari McCautry scored on the very first possession. That's the second game in a row, by the way, that the 9th player in the rotation has scored their first bucket in the very first possession of the second half. Just shows you how rounded this Billiken scoring is. At the same time, maybe not so rounded of a scoring. Insane box score from Duquesne. I tweeted this out, but it got a little less crazy. But Williams picks up 28 points on 11 of 22. They get 14 more points from Gwynard. So we're talking 44 of their 77 points coming from 2 players. And then if you look at their box score, no other player on that roster made more than 2 buckets from the field. Everybody else made either 1 or 2 buckets. Credit to them. At least everybody made at least a bucket. Also a very deep 9 player roster for Duquesne as well. But none of them made more than 2 shots. And that just shows you, we always talk about the offense, and I'm a broken instrument with this, but still, we talk about the offense every time. But the reason why the Billikens are 18-1 is because of their defense. It consistently continues to be because of their defense. Why is the game still a Billikens lead in the first half, despite the fact that a lot of points, a lot of stats were either even or slightly in Duquesne's favor, or to your point, they couldn't hit a shot from 2-point range? Why was the game close? Defense. Why were they able to take that 17-2 lead? They're hitting shots. People are taking smarter shots, but they're creating easy shots with great defense. And why did they actually win the game instead of somehow shitting it away at the end? Well, despite turning the ball over and looking like crap, I guess we can chalk up some of those misses from Duquesne to defense. The Billikens are 18-1 because of defense. Full stop.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. And that was really where I thought Duquesne, what they really do best as a team is 2-point field goal percentage as well. Just like SLU's very good at it. But Duquesne's 26th in the country in 2-point field goal percentage at 59%. So that was a huge strength for them. But we know every strength that the Billikens opponents have, they can counter it because SLU's so good at everything. They're number 1 in the country in field goal percentage defense, including number 3 at defending twos. So that was a big stat I was going to look at tonight, was what was Duquesne going to do from 2-point range, since again they're 26th in the country at 59%. Duquesne finishes from 2-point range 15 out of 36, just 41%. I mean, there's a lot of different stats you can look at that won the Billikens the game, but you took Duquesne's biggest strength that they are elite at, 26th in the country, and you hold them to 41% from 2-point range. Defense travels. It traveled tonight.
There it is. Let's talk about our good friends, DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official betting partner of the NFL, and they make every playoff moment feel bigger. And heck, they even make your prop plays a little easier with early exit protection. They got your back. If a player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. Looking forward to the NFL weekend, Eric Sontag. What do you like for the championship weekend?
The Rams were my pick.
Weekend.
Yeah. The Rams before the playoffs were my pick to advance to the Super Bowl. And so I think them getting 2.5 points, I'm going to be good. Taking the Rams, I just think, they obviously beat Seattle once where Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. And then the second meeting, the Rams really blew that game. I believe they were up by 16 late in the game, and it really took a special teams touchdown by Seattle to get them back in the game. And they, Seattle makes the miracle comeback and they win the game. But I think the Rams are overall a better team. I think they're going to win that game straight up.
And is it still just, I think I saw 5.5 for the Patriots favored on the Broncos. 5.5 seems like an insta call for the Patriots. Am I wrong?
That to me is going to be a great live betting game because I have no idea what this Denver quarterback is going to look like. I want to see what he looks like. Stidham, I believe his name is.
Yeah. Jarrett Stidham, drafted by the Patriots, of course, now in the Broncos. Well, you guys can get those wagers in on the NFL championship, conference championship games this weekend with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code STL Sports right there on your screen, STL Sports. That's code STL Sports to turn $5 into $300 bonus dollars in bonus bets if your bet wins. With our friends in partnership with DraftKings, where the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or call ccbg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, call dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
All right, I'm banking on shirts having a yellow lot, so maybe his presser hasn't started yet, but we got to get to it here in a moment. Final thoughts on this game, and what are you thinking looking forward to Friday afternoon as the Billikens try to go on another 2-0 road trip, this time facing off against the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure on Friday afternoon?
Yeah, always tough playing the Bonnies at their place. Just overall, it's survive and advance at this point. That's really what I'm looking to see, especially when the Billikens play on the road. But they got to clean up these late game situations. They have not been in a ton of close games, and we've seen them really not perform well where they're ahead late in the game. They're getting a little bit tight, so I want to see them just kind of relax, play their game for 40 minutes. But overall, it's something that I mentioned earlier in the show. Shooting away from home, I just did the math where we're doing the DraftKings spot. The Billikens are only shooting 33% from 3-point range on the road. And I believe they're 39% for the season. If they may be up to 40% now. So they're shooting way, way better at home. This is another situation on Friday against the Bonnies. You just want to win the game. I see SLU has dropped just one spot in KenPom that is updated. So they dropped from 29 down to 30. Billikens projected to win this game 84-75 at the Bonnies on Friday. I think you're ranked 24th. Get this out of your system. Where if you're gonna, have a lot of things to learn from, you want to learn when you get a win. And overall, they do get the win. 18-1 for just the second time in school history. 12-game winning streak. Just keep taking care of business on the road, and you got to do it again on Friday.
There it is, the Billikens and the Bonnies, Friday, 4:30. That puts us on the air here around 6:45 on the Billikens Central postgame. For Eric Sontag, I'm Matthew Rocchio. The Billikens survive in Pittsburgh, 81-77 over Duquesne. You can catch all the Billikens coverage here on STL Sports Central. Just like, share, subscribe. We're always talking Billikens on the Randy Carricker Show every day from 3 to 4 p.m. here on STL Sports Central. Also keep a lookout for all of these Billikens Central post games. Again, like, share, and subscribe to everybody here on the YouTube app. Whatever you do, you can also check out all the written work on STLSportsCentral.com. Again, for Eric Sontag, I'm Matthew Rocchio. We'll talk to you on Friday afternoon. Have a great evening, St. Louis.